place to choose.
Okay, all right. Let's get on it. You know how way of mastery is. We want to hurry up and focus in. So just take a breath for a minute and kind of allow yourself to let go of the freaking day.
Okay.
Take a breath. Let go of the day. Let go of the day. Take a breath. Let go of the day. Remind yourself that you don't have to believe the ideas, you don't have to accept the ideas, you don't have to believe the ideas, you don't have to accept the ideas, you don't have to believe the ideas, you don't have to accept the ideas, you don't have to welcome the ideas. Some of the ideas you may actively resist. Some of the ideas you're going to find hard to believe. Some of the ideas you're going to find hard to believe. Some of the ideas you're going to find hard to believe. Some of the ideas you're going to find quite startling. You're not asked to judge the ideas at all. If you use the ideas, you will recognize that the ideas are true because the ideas will show you that they're true. So take a breath. I'm going to start off with a little exercise to expand your awareness. I want you to take just a moment, and within your consciousness, I want to drop this little simple pebble in your consciousness right now. I want you to tell yourself silently, I want to ask you to tell yourself silently, I am not what I perceive myself to be. I am not what I perceive myself to be. I am not what I perceive myself to be. I am not what I perceive myself to be. I am not what I perceive myself to be. I am not what I perceive myself to be. I am not what I perceive myself to be. I am not what I perceive myself to be. I am not what I perceive myself to be. Then I'd like you to say to yourself silently, I am unlimited, pure spirit. 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 Nothing is unavailable to me. Nothing is unavailable to me. Nothing is unavailable to me. Nothing is nothing is unavailable. Nothing is unavailable to me. Nothing is unavailable to me. Tell yourself, nothing is unavailable to me. 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 Therefore, in this moment, tell yourself, in this moment, I choose to open access to other dimensions, I choose to open access to other dimensions of experience. I choose to open access to other dimensions of experience so that I might call this moment to me in a different way. I call this moment to me in a different way. I call this moment to me in a different way. I call this moment to me in a different way. I call this moment to me in a different way. As the words are spoken, I want you to notice what images begin to come into your field of awareness. As you perhaps imagine yourself to be far more than just the body. Imagine yourself to be far more than just your luscious, juicy physical body. Imagine yourself to be more than just your body. Imagine yourself abiding in far greater dimensions than this physical dimension. You live in far greater dimensions than this physical dimension. You live in far greater dimensions than this physical dimension. Do you see fleeting images of some type? Sometimes you see colors of light when you open yourself up. Sometimes you have subtle feelings that perhaps you haven't been aware of while you were focusing on your physical reality. What do you notice going through your field of awareness right now? Pay attention to it, for you cannot imagine what you have not or are not experiencing. You are not what you perceive yourself to be. You are unlimited pure spirit, and nothing is unavailable to you. You can choose to open access to other dimensions of experience so that I may call this moment and you may call this moment to you in a different way. Tell yourself, I call this moment to me in a different way. I call this moment to me in a different way. Maybe you weren't feeling good when you walked in. Maybe you were feeling some trepidation. Maybe you were feeling some type of fear or anxiety. Choose for something different right now. Say, I call this moment to me in a different way. I call this moment to me in a different way. I call this moment to me in a different way. I call this moment to me in a different way. Wow. We're going to be on lesson 22 on page 265 if you got the book. And I'm going to start off with the sentence that starts, enlightenment is a state in which the world, it's like paragraph 3, 4. Now remember, it's not about agreeing with or necessarily understanding everything you hear tonight. What you're doing is you want to look for whatever sentence or whatever we say that you can tell applies to you right now. I'm going to spend about 10 minutes going through material, and then I'm going to open it up for question and discussion for about 5 minutes. Then I'm going to go through some more material. Then I'm going to open it up for about 5 minutes. That way we'll move forward and get a chance to share at the same time. So while I'm sharing the information, I won't be taking questions during that time. So hang on to your question, and when we go to that part, then I'll open it up for any kind of comments or questions. So let's go. It's so exciting. Enlightenment is a state in which the world, and the world is not outside of you. The world is not outside of you. The world is not outside of you. Your world is not outside of you. The world is the context, the thoughts, the images, the perceptions that you have attracted to yourself, and they can no longer hold power over you. So I said again, what is your world? Your world is the thoughts, the images, and perceptions that you've attracted to yourself. Your world, your world, your world, your world, is the context, the thoughts, the images, and perceptions that you've attracted to yourself. They can no longer hold power over you. How do you keep your world from holding power over you? By always saying that you're creating whatever is happening to you in your world. Whenever you tell yourself that you are the one that's creating and attracting whatever is happening to you in your world, that's when your world no longer has power over you. When you think you're the victim of the world that you're in and everything that's happening and it has nothing to do with you, then that's when your world has power over you. It doesn't mean that your world ceases to exist. This has been the great era of religion as opposed to spirituality. Religion will give you a set of beliefs, ideas about yourself, standards that you must achieve. Thereby, the mind concludes that if I'm to be a spiritual person, I cannot be angry. If I'm to be a spiritual person, I can't say to that person who cut me off in traffic, son of a bitch. You just said that today, didn't you? That would not make you a spiritual person according to the way that religion would tell you a spiritual person would be. He says if you're a spiritual person, then you don't have sexual fantasies about your neighbor. If you're a spiritual person, you don't have sexual fantasies about people. That's what religion would tell you. If you're a spiritual person. You know. So how many of you all have had sexual fantasies? Those of us who are raising our hands, we're raising them for everybody. Okay? So just we'll tell the truth. You know you have some freaking sexual fantasies. Just because you're in this room, don't be acting like you don't have no sexual fantasies. That's right. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. The next thing it says is that that's completely false. To think that because you're spiritual, you're not going to get angry. Because you're spiritual, you're not going to have sexual fantasies. Because you're spiritual, you're not going to get depressed. Because you're spiritual, you're not going to get upset. That is absolutely false. That's not true. Got it? All right. Then it goes on to say, for in reality, the experience in your domain is one in which the mind has created and is aware of all things unlike love. So he's saying that we are experiencing a reality that your mind has created in which you're actually becoming aware of everything that's not love. That we live in a domain that we're having the opportunity to see what you would experience if you were not really practicing real love. So the way a master is saying, what we are experiencing is what is not love. And that's what we're seeing. It's what is not love. And when you say you love somebody, everything that is not love comes up to be released. So beware. As soon as you tell somebody you love them, everything that's not love is going to come up to be seen and released and healed. Which kind of blows people's mind because they think by saying, I love you, that means you're just going to only have the good stuff. But the truth is, the minute you go, I love you, then you're going, oh hell, here it comes. Everything that's not love between you and I has to come up to be released and healed. Okay? Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, yeah.
Of saying that you love somebody and after you said you love them, then all this stuff starts to come up between you, right? That's normal. That's not normal. So if you're going through that right now, that's a good thing. Then it goes on to say, when you start to be aware of all things unlike love, then your mind then splits itself off and projects an image called the ego to itself first, and obviously to others, that it most wants to believe is true. So when I start to see things that are unlike love, then I'm going to project it out in an image called the ego. So when I become aware of what's not love in myself, he says, then what we do is we project it into everything and everybody around us. So we take our own ego, the thoughts that we have that are not love, and then we project it out into everyone else, and then we say, you're selfish, you're not cool, you know, something wrong with you, you make me mad, I wish you were different. He said that's us projecting our own ego, fearful thoughts out to other people. Those unloving thoughts are being projected. And then you are attracted to the person who most represents your own ego. And so therefore, you actually find yourself being drawn to people sometimes, and you wonder why you can't get rid of them. You know, even though you don't necessarily like them or feel good about them, because they represent your own ego. Okay, then it goes on to say that, I love it. But remember, belief is not knowledge. Knowledge alone allows the mind to observe what arises within the mind without judgment, without fear, and without identifying with it. So as you become conscious, this is what you're going to do. You're going to look at the things that come up in your mind and you're going to stop judging it, no matter what it is. Even if it's the part of you that says, I'm angry, I'm upset, I feel selfish, I feel jealous, I feel unhappy. Then he says that what's going to happen is you're going to let those thoughts come up and you're not going to judge them. You're going to let those thoughts come up and you're not going to be afraid of them. And you're going to stop identifying with your negative thoughts. You're going to stop thinking that the thoughts you have about yourself are you. So your image of yourself no longer will be what you are identifying with. What you're calling yourself, you'll no longer say, that's really me. So as you wake up, you go, oh, I'm having a fearful thought, an angry thought, a suspicious thought. I won't judge myself for having that. I won't be afraid about myself for having that. And I'm going to stop identifying with any thoughts that I have that are not loving. We're hearing about where we're going to go, where we're going to be when we start to really practice the truth as opposed to philosophizing about it. Then it goes on to say, knowledge looks upon the world in perfect forgiveness and says, oh, you know what, I just had a murderous thought. I had a picture of hitting my employer over the head with a sledgehammer and watching the blood spurt through their broken skull. Yum, yum, wow. I know. That doesn't sound spiritual, does it? But it sure sounds true. I just had a murderous thought. I had a picture of hitting my employer over the head with a sledgehammer and watching the blood spurt through the broken skull. Oh, yes, well, just another thought arising. Just another thought passing away in this domain. This thought of murdering my boss doesn't really change the truth of who I am. And I'm still free to extend love or to hit him with a hammer. I'm free to love you or to do this is a thought coming up in my mind. I'm free to either do what the thought says or I'm free to choose for love. That's what's happening all day long. I have a desire to go off on you. I can either choose to go off on you or I can choose to practice a thought of love. But it's not something for me to be feeling guilty about. I should look at myself with perfect forgiveness because thoughts just arise in the mind. So the quickest way to get over anger is to stop feeling guilty about getting angry. The easiest way to get past murderous thoughts is to stop beating yourself up for having murderous thoughts. The easiest way to get past negative thoughts is to realize the thought has come up, say the thought has come up, and I can either choose for peace in this moment or I can do what the thought is telling me to do. He says the mind that is free and at peace is no longer conflicted within itself. So when your mind is free and when your mind is at peace, you are not in conflict anymore. So if you are in conflict in any area of your mind right now, if you're in conflict in any area of your life right now, your mind isn't free. Now what does that mean? It means you are still judging the thoughts that you're having. You're not letting the thoughts just come up without judging them, without being afraid of them, and just asking yourself, am I going to choose to act on this thought or am I going to choose for peace? So if you're in conflict, you're judging your thoughts. Wow. So the mind that is free and at peace is no longer conflicted within itself. The mind that is unconflicted abides in perfect vulnerability. The mind that is unconflicted has learned to embrace and accept the truth about the phenomena of the mind itself in this dream world. In other words, the mind that is free and at peace is willing to begin to be honest and to cultivate deeper honesty with everyone around them. A mind that is at peace and free no longer is their pretense. No longer is there manipulation when your mind is free. No longer is there control when your mind is free. There is no unconscious split off energy actually running the show, even though the mind seems to be oblivious to it. So the mind in conflict with itself is dangerous to itself. So when you're in conflict, your mind isn't dangerous to anybody else. Your mind is actually dangerous to you. And of course, by extension, your mind then seems to be dangerous to everybody else, not in just one dimension, but all of them. Therefore, indeed, beloved friends, beware of those that come in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. Beware of the viciousness of the ego within your own mind. How does your ego come to you in sheep's clothing? Does your ego minimize hurtful behaviors? Does your ego minimize what is truly merely a lack of self-responsibility? Does your ego always make excuses why your life is not progressing in a way of becoming more and more empowered to bring forth the Christ or the true self within you? Learn to cultivate self-honesty. Though it sounds like a simple thing, cultivating self-honesty does take time. How many times do people ask you how you feel and you know you don't feel the way you're telling them you feel? Just think about how many times a day someone asks you how you feel. You say, oh, fine, I feel great, I feel okay. And you know that's not how you feel. But you know what's more of a trip than that? It's for you to say that to yourself when you know you don't feel that way. It's one thing to say it to somebody else, but when you're lying to yourself about how you feel, you're really in trouble. You know, if I'm going to pretend to myself that I'm not upset when I'm upset, that's total and complete self-deception. And then you'll create something that'll show you that you're lying to yourself. And it usually isn't very pleasant, but the purpose of it is to get you to realize you are not being honest with yourself. So it says right here that because the man learn to cultivate self-honesty, though it sounds like a simple thing, it does take time, simply because the mind has used its own power to be in denial about its own miscreations. In other words, you don't want to own your own thoughts. It does not want to embrace its own thoughts. This mind wants very much for you and itself to believe that it's really a very high spiritual being. So the part of your mind that wants to believe is a very high spiritual being is the same part of your mind he's saying that lies, because it's trying to make itself think it's more high, more spiritual, more loving than it actually is. Because if we think to be spiritual means you never say, I want to hit my boss upside the head with a hammer and crack his skull wide open. No spiritual being would say something like that. So even though you have that feeling, then you don't admit it to yourself, and then he says this creates conflict, and then you find yourself in conflict with everybody around you. But if you stop lying to yourself, then you would find that your outer world will stop conflicting with you. So if your world is full of conflict with you, then you are deceiving yourself, lying to yourself, being dishonest about your true feelings and true thoughts about what's going on. And you're also judging them as opposed to just realizing this is a thought that's coming up right now. That's all it is. It's one of my thoughts that's coming up right now. Bam. Okay, questions, comments?
That's always us too.
I think you won, Chris.
Are you sitting together, Joe?
I wanted to go back to what you say, that thoughts just arise. Because sometimes, like, I'll be thinking of someone that I love, that I really like. And then all of a sudden, I'll have images come through my mind of me, like, murdering them or me hitting them or something. And it terrifies me because I'm like, oh man, what if I'm capable of doing that? But then just hearing you say that thoughts just arise, then what I will hear is that they're not good or bad, they just are, right?
That's right. That's right. What really matters is whether or not you actually act on the thought.
Okay.
So having a thought, he just said, you know, it's like if you're a conscious being, you just go, oh, I'm having this thought right now. The Course in Miracles will take it a step further and go, this is just my call for God, this is just my call for love. Okay. And I'm not going to be afraid of it, I'm not going to judge it, I'm not going to put myself down about it, and I'm certainly not going to say if I was a spiritual person I wouldn't have these thoughts, because we've already heard that whenever you say you want to be a loving being, then everything that is not loving is going to come up to be released. So why should you be surprised that these thoughts are coming up to be released? They're not coming up because you're going to murder somebody. They're actually coming up so that you can release them and let them go. And you release and let them go by not judging yourself and condemning yourself for having it, which he defined as perfect forgiveness. I think that's interesting, that if you're perfectly forgiving yourself, you're having your most dastardly thoughts without guilt. That's what forgiving yourself is. Okay, I had the thought, but I didn't act on the thought. And so therefore, it's nothing for me to be tripping about. It would be something for me to be tripping about if I would actually go hit him upside the head with the hammer. And actually, I couldn't even hit him upside the head with the hammer unless there was some part of him that was asking to be hit upside the head with a hammer. So actually, it would have to be a collaborative venture for it to happen at both ends. So even if you wanted to hit the person upside the head with the hammer, if it wasn't some part of their own consciousness that wanted to be hit upside the head with the hammer, it never would happen.
Cool.
Anyway, because nothing happens to anybody that they're not at some level attracting or creating and drawing to themselves. Isn't that deep?
Very.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we know we don't have to believe this, we don't have to accept it, we don't have to welcome it. But if you take that attitude, there's a lot less chance that you'd ever be hit upside the head with a hammer. That's what the weird part about it, is that if you could accept the idea that you're not a victim of the world you see, then you would not be a victim of the world you see. Then the people who say, well, I am a victim, you can't be a victim. Okay, if you believe that, then you attract victim circumstances and you get a chance to be right, but it was unnecessary. It was unnecessary for you to go through that. But you insisted that you can be a victim. The universe always says yes. The universe always says yes. The universe always says yes. Nobody's gonna love me. Yes. I could be really rich. Yes. Nothing goes right for me. Yes. The universe always says yes. Remember that. The universe always says yes. I'm gonna lose my job. Yes. My partner's gonna cheat on me. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. Ta-da! Next.
That's exactly what my question was, is that my thoughts scare me because they're self-deprecating. They're like, oh, you're never going to get a job. You suck. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm telling the universe to make my life suck. I don't mean it. So I'm unable to forget those thoughts because I don't want the universe to give me what I think, because we talked about me being a Gemini and I think all the time, and I have to be careful about that.
It's all about what you choose to think and not judging the thoughts that you're thinking that are not loving. Notice it didn't say it would be ridiculous. Think how hard it would be all day for you to go all day with the goal of never having a negative thought. That's what you think about that.
Right.
Could you imagine getting up in the morning and saying, all day long I'm going to only have positive, loving thoughts until the time I go to bed tonight? That's crap. You know you're not going to do that. You know you aren't going to do that. It would be much better to say, oh, this is a thought that I created that's arising, that I'm not going to judge, that I'm not going to be afraid of, that I just have a thought of either going for the peace right now, actually acting on this thought. That's much easier.
And then that tells the universe, like...
Right, the fact that you didn't give it any power because you don't feel guilty about it that's what keeps it from having any real power.
Okay, so I want to go the peaceful route, and the universe is like, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. How do I know I want to go the peaceful route? Because I didn't hit it upside the head with the hammer.
Okay.
Right? And then when you hear about somebody else hitting somebody upside the head with a hammer, then you need to remember that you have thoughts like that too, but you just didn't act on them, so you're really not any different from the other person, so you don't even have to judge them so harshly either. You know, we've all had murderous thoughts. We've all had thoughts of killing something, even if it was a mosquito or a fly. You know, so why are we acting so shocked when we say somebody has a murderous idea? We all have had murderous ideas. But when we have false spirituality, we think it's never admitting it. If I'm really, really spiritual, I'll never admit that I had this idea of attacking you, because then I wouldn't be spiritual. But a spiritual, I have the feeling that people who are really spiritual can look like the biggest egomaniacs that you could ever see, because they wouldn't be hiding their thoughts about each other. Mm-hmm. They would be saying to their partner, you know what, I just want to take this fork and stick it in your eye because of what you just said about the clothes I was wearing last night. Isn't that just a trip? You know? And they would say, oh yeah, I wanted to saw your head off last night. Isn't that a trip? And then I'll just have a good laugh about it. Maybe you get turned on, get a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So it just depends on the way you look at it. Right? And false spirituality is, I hate your freaking guts, but I'm going to say, I really am glad to be here with you right now, and I really like you. See, that's false spirituality, and that's what we have to watch out for. When we are lying to ourselves, and lying to someone else. It doesn't mean you don't walk up to somebody and say, well, I'm an honest spiritual person. I want you to know I hate your guts and want to kill you. You know, I'm not saying you have to have common sense. Don't lose your common sense. But what you are doing is you admitting to yourself that you have those feelings. You don't have to necessarily tell the other person you're having those feelings, because then you'll have put the police on your butt or something. But, what you want to do is never lie to yourself about what you're feeling. Don't you tell yourself you like somebody you know you don't like. You tell yourself, oh, I'm having that feeling of not liking this person. I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to be afraid about it. It's a thought that's arising. Now, am I going to act on this thought of not liking this person? Am I going to mistreat them? Okay, anybody else? Yes.
So, say I'm having murderous thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do I develop compassion for the other? Is it just by not choosing to act on them?
Yes. Yes, my dear. That is you're having compassion for me if you have the thought of shooting me and you decide not to. That's a great level of compassion. I heartily recommend that level of compassion. It's exactly right. Here's the 4-step process. I feel my feelings completely. I feel them completely. Then I tell myself I'm the one that's giving it all the meaning that it has for me. Then I tell myself that I'm grateful that I have the ability to give meaning to everything I see. And then the 4th step is to say, and I'm still the way love created me. Like even when I get through these negative thoughts, I'm still that spiritual being that God created. That has not been changed. Feel the feeling, admit you're the one that's creating it, then be thankful you have the power to create your feelings. And then remind yourself you're still as God created you. That's the 4-step process to going past any kind of negative, quote, so-called feeling. Got it? You don't fake about it. You say, I feel it. As a matter of fact, stretch it out as far as you possibly can. Like think to take it as far negative as you can possibly take it. Like if you're dealing with a situation that you're afraid of, ask yourself, what is the worst possible thing that I think could happen to me in this situation? And go there. Take it as far as you can take it. Then you tell yourself, I'm the one that's creating it. Then you tell yourself, you know what, I'm thankful I can create. I'm glad that I'm not the victim, that I can create. And then tell yourself, no matter what I'm thinking, I'm still, as God created me, I'm still innocent, I'm still powerful, I'm still a spiritual being. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's too easy. It's too loving. Can you imagine how much you'd have to love yourself to do what's being suggested tonight? Because if you're a person who really wants to punish yourself, you're not going to like what I'm saying right now because you're looking for condemnation and judgment. And I ain't giving you none. I ain't going to give you any. I'm going to see you as a loving being. I don't care what you think about yourself. All right?
Right.
All right?
Earl, what was that 4th one?
The 4th one is I'm still as God created me. Or I'm still as love created me if you got a problem with the word God. If you got a problem with the word God, you might want to work on it. It just means your perception. It just means your perception of God is incorrect. Okay. You want to go further now? We got it? Y'all ready? Okay. Then it goes on to say, I love this. It will wear the sheep's clothing of the ego, of the persona, the mask, the self-image, the projected image into the social world. In other words, it will cling to that like a robe around the body, held against the cold winter wind, and it will cling to it no matter what. In other words, we cling to our ideas about ourselves, and we actually clothe ourselves in our beliefs about ourselves, right? We wear our thoughts about ourselves like you would a robe. It's like, here you are. My robe says I'm Earl Purdy, the teachers of Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery, and I'm Earl Purdy, and I got my issues, and I got my story. That's my robe. So all of us have robes on right now. And who's sitting in the chair is our representative. Our representative is passing on information to us. So we call it our outer persona. Like all of us know, generally speaking, none of us act like this in private with our closest friends. But there's a different persona that comes out than we see in this classroom. This is our outer robe. We are seeing each other's mask. That's what we're looking at now. Only we are clothed in our mask. Okay? Which we call our personality. I'm just bashful. I'm an introvert. I don't dance. I'm quiet. Those are all our roles. You get the right person at the right time, you're the loudest person in the room. You know what I'm saying? All of us got those people that when we're with those people, we show them a side of ourselves that no one else sees. But for the public, we got our robe, right? And so he goes on to say, such a man is an insane man. So if you are just living from your persona and not from where you really are in your heart, the way a master says you have an insane man. And when you have an insane man, your insane man is hurtful. An insane man limits the flow of love through it that could heal this world. So when you are afraid, you are insane. When you are insane, you are blocking the love that could come through you to heal this world. So people who are afraid have blocked energy. That blocked energy makes the body sick. So whenever you don't let the energy flow through your body out into your experience, the body is attacked and the body gets sick. So if you're full of bodily ills, you have a lot of blocked energy. Energy that you're judging as opposed to letting flow through you. That's deep, isn't it? Therefore, beloved friends, as we move toward the way of transformation, we again bring the arrow, back to point at ourselves, to point at the depth of the mind, and to learn to observe the mind. So a conscious being is observing their thoughts, but they're not judging their thoughts. And if you're judging your thoughts and you can't help but judge your thoughts, then the Course in Miracles would say, use the judgment of the Holy Spirit, which is all of your thoughts are love or a call for love. Every thought you have is a thought of love, or every thought you have is a call for love to come to you. That's the only kind of thoughts you have in your mind. Loving thoughts or thoughts that are called for God, a call for love. So if you want to cuss somebody out, call them a call for God. You friggin' call for God. Doggone call for God. That call for God every time he says something to me. I just can't hardly take it. You know, that's how you look. You start calling it love or call for love. And if you're going crazy and you're being insane, guess what? That's your call for love. So you shouldn't be hard on yourself either. Now, people who believe that guilt makes them good people, they're going to opt for guilt instead of opting for the innocence that I just talked about. They're going to think it's better to beat themselves up rather than to admit that it's just their own call for love. So then he goes on to say, therefore, he says, take the list of questions that we've offered unto you and simply repeat that process on a daily basis. So you see, we first begin in the safety of allowing you to look way, way, way into the past to see if any of that has ever been going on in the mind. Now we come closer and closer to the self-honesty of what is occurring in your mind right now and right here, so that each day you ask the same questions and see what the answer is. In this way, your mind will become more and more transparent. We talked about, you start asking yourself, what do I really want? What do I really want? What do I really want? What do I really value? What's really important to me? How am I really feeling right now? That allows your mind to become more and more transparent. Why is your mind more and more transparent? Because you are being honest with yourself more and more about what's in your mind. And so therefore your mind is transparent because you're actually seeing what's there. But a person who's denying what's in their mind, pretending that it's not there, they don't have any choice but to meet it in their physical world so that they can be aware of it. So all of the anger that's in me that I won't admit is in me, I will meet it in my world to make me aware that it's there. So the more you're in denial, the more you have things happen to you from the outer. The less you're in denial, the less you'll have things that come to you from the outer that are unpleasant. So if there's a lot of unpleasant things happening, but you're a nice person, then it means you have a lot of denied anger, and it's coming to make you aware that you need to do some forgiving. What would be forgiving? To admit that you have the anger, don't judge yourself for it, don't be afraid of yourself for it, and just choose not to act on it. That's forgiveness. So it didn't even say you had to not have the angry thought. It just said you need to stop judging yourself for having the angry thought. I would love to be able to have all my thoughts in peace. I would love not to spend all day trying to make sure I didn't say this and make sure I didn't say that. I think it would be a lot easier day if I would just let all my thoughts arise, but I just choose to act on the ones that I'd like to see manifested, but don't spend all day long trying to pretend I don't have the rest of them. So it goes on to say, in this way, the mind will become more and more transparent. You will learn to look upon your murderous thoughts and all of those hideous, unspiritual things that you have tried to shove into the basement more and more as you tell yourself the truth about all those thoughts you tried to shove into the basement of your mind, and more as you find a friend or two willing to tell the truth about their own minds with you, the more the mind becomes transparent, the less you have any need to hide. Very powerful statement. Let me go back and say that. If you want your mind to become transparent, if you want to get rid of the thoughts that you are in denial about so that you don't have to meet them in your physical world, then have a friend or two that would be willing to hold space where you said the most negative things that come to your mind about whatever you're feeling right now. That's the easiest way to make your mind transparent, is to have a friend or two that they're willing to tell you the truth about what's really going on in their mind, and you're willing to tell the truth about what's really going on in your mind. If you be honest with, if you think about it, that's what you do with your best friends. They're the ones that you usually are very honest with about what's going on in your mind. And if they're not judging you for that, then you are actually becoming more transparent, you're actually getting out of denial, and you're actually making yourself safer. So if you have people in your life that you can say the not so pretty things to, but they realize you are still innocent, you're just sharing thoughts that are rising in you, then you are actually becoming more transparent, less conflicted, and more powerful in that spirituality. So does everybody have somebody like that in their life that they feel like they could really tell their most hideous thoughts to without the person really judging them? Because that's what I loved about my buddies when I was growing up, is that we could say anything to each other and feel innocent, because your real buddy usually had the same dysfunctions as you. So it would be really, so it's easy for you all to talk about y'all's equally perverted thoughts or angry thoughts, you know. And if there isn't anyone in your life like that, you might want to ask yourself, why are you so afraid to share what's going on in your mind with somebody? Now, it's important to ask them not to fix you, not to correct you. That you don't want their opinion, you don't want their advice, you don't want anything but for them to just be there and to hear what you got to say. And if you want to get their advice, that you'll ask for it. But they're not to voluntarily try to fix you. So just kind of make that agreement. I'm getting ready to share something. It's really intense. I just want you to hear it. The right person will let you share it without correcting you. The wrong person will trigger their guilt, and then they will feel compelled to try to fix you because it triggered their guilt. You frightened them. You made them aware of something in themselves that they were trying to keep hidden in themselves too. Like if you say, like if you have, like usually whenever as I grow older, whenever I try to have a conversation about aging, especially around people my age, they'll usually always pounce in with age is just a digit. That's the first thing they're trying. You know what I'm saying? Because it's triggering their own fear of aging. So they want to pretend that they're not aging, and you're saying, well, actually, I am aging. I don't look like I did when I was 23 years old. It's not an illusion in that sense. It's actually, I can't do it, you know? And so then you would say, well, what is the gift of my age? Because every age has a gift. The older you get, you're supposed to be able to create things with your mind that you used to have to create with your body.
All right.
You should be aware enough that you could attract the money that you used to have to work 50 hours a week to get. You're supposed to be evolving enough to see the power of your own mind so that you don't have to be as physically active doing things. As you get older, you're supposed to be developing more psychically and spiritually to compensate for what changes in your physical body. But we are not taught that in the West, because in the West, it's all about youth. If you're over 30, you're suspect. You know, as if under 30 is the smartest. Now, all you gotta do is remember yourself under 30. You know that's about to happen. But they have in your 20s, you're in your invisible decade. You know, you're invincible when you're in your 20s. And you have ideas that if the world would just listen to, you could change the whole world. And you need that kind of energy. We need that kind of fire. We need that kind of spirit. You know. And by the 30s, you should be realizing your pattern enough to start to be creative for the first time. In your 40s, you realizing what you haven't accomplished. And at the same time, you're reassessing your values and going for what really is valuable to you. In your 50s, you're becoming more confident and you're more comfortable in your own skin. And you're becoming more cooled out about who you are right now. And I'll let you know about the 60s. I'm working on that right now. Okay. What I feel in my 60s, more than anything, is how my peace is the most important thing. Because you've tried so much of everything, and in most cases, you may have given yourself so much of the stuff that you wanted that you know that things in and of itself will not make you happy. And so all of a sudden, you're trying to go for what's really valuable. For real. You know, it's really interesting. It's an interesting place to be that I didn't think I'd be here so fast. It happens very fast. Especially if you're having a good time. You all know how fast time passes when you're having a good time. I've been having a good time. I'm out of here. I'm already dead. Sorry, I'm already gone.
Are you afraid of
Am I afraid of what?
death?
There's a part of me that's afraid of death, and there's a part of me that looks forward to it, to be quite honest. Because there's a part of me that studied this long enough to really begin to accept the idea that I'm more than my body, and that what we really are is unlimited, and that this is not where we really came from, and this is not really our home, and this is where we came to learn to forgive and to love, and it's like being off at school, like off at college or something, and then you go back home, but we get here and then we forget where we came from, and we buy into this whole illusion and forget that we are unlimited spiritual beings, and that's why we become afraid. Not only that, then we teach ourselves we're not what we are, then we teach ourselves we don't have creative power, and then we teach ourselves that we're guilty and sinful. This sounds like a lot of fun to teach ourselves, right? And then we're wondering why our lives suck. It's because of the belief systems that we have accepted. And we think it's something else. It's your belief system that's making you unhappy. It's nothing but your belief system that's making you unhappy. Not a person, not a situation, not a circumstance. It's your belief system. That's it. Period.
Well, that takes the pressure off of me.
Why?
It's not my personality. It's my belief system.
It's your belief system.
It's actually a comforting thought.
Yeah. If you really and truly believe that whatever age you are, you could attract that which you really love, then you wouldn't be afraid of anything. And the Course in Miracles says that the body will stop aging as you recognize you're not it. That the reason why it ages is because we think we're it. I thought that was interesting. That if you could separate yourself from your body as being your identity, is that then your body would start to conform to your highest idea of yourself. That sounds cool. That sounds really cool. Doesn't that make sense?
You'll start to see what you'll see. Yeah.
Well, so anybody else any more questions before we go on a little bit further in this thing?
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
what you just said about the body thing, is that then how Jesus was able to after he died to reconstitute his body?
And if you're not it, you can do anything with it because according to metaphysics, it's just an image. It's an image that's being projected from your mind. Your body is not. Your mind isn't in your body. Your body's in your mind. You're not in your body. Your body's in you. That's deep. So if you realize that you just project an image of your body that could be in the way that you want. That's why when people die and you are able to perceive them in the next level, be it in a dream, which is the easiest way for people who have transitioned to contact you, they usually come to you in their ideal age form. So they, even if they died at 80, they'll come at you at looking like they're 35, if that was the ideal way that their body looked to them, that they liked. Like I had that experience with my father after his transition, that he came to me in a dream, but he looked really, really great, because he was in an image that he wanted to be in, that he loved. And he told me, well, you can't come right now. You got some stuff you got to learn, and your life is getting ready to make an incredible shift. And then within a month, I discovered astrology, and astrology put me on my spiritual path. Everything in my life shifted right after that. So you could talk to your friends and relatives who have, and your loved ones who have transitioned. The only reason why we don't is because we've been taught we can't. And if you believe that, and belief makes your reality, then you won't have the experience. And another reason why you won't have the experience is because if it would frighten you, they won't do it. Because no one who loves you wants to scare you. No one who loves you wants to scare you. So if the appearance of an invisible master would freak you out, it's not going to appear, they're not going to appear in your living room. But what they will do is they'll give you their thoughts. And all of a sudden you start having these ideas that enlighten you, and you'll be wondering where they came from. And they're coming from your own higher self, your own invisible masters. All of us have guides. All of us have guides who have been assigned to us to support us through this experience. But our belief system tells us that it's not true. That's the one thing I love about religion. Even if it's religion that's not so cool, is that at least religion keeps the idea alive that there's something beyond the body. And religion also keeps the idea that there's a higher power that you can go to, and which is very much needed. And religion keeps the idea that we have guidance like angels and the Holy Spirit. So there's a lot of good. If it weren't for religion, we wouldn't hear none, and the way nothing is true. Because we'd be so scientific, intellectually minded, that we wouldn't pay any attention to the psychic, intuitive side of things. The right brain kind of stuff. Because in the West, we're totally pretty much totally in our left brain. If it can't be scientifically proven, it doesn't exist. And the only thing that science is doing is proving what people who are mystics have been saying for thousands of years. That's what's so funny. Scientists are just saying what mystics have always seen. Physicists are doing it every day, saying stuff like, do you know nothing that you're looking at is really solid? And whatever you think, how you think about something, it affects how it manifests. I mean, they're just proving what we've always known, the mystics have always known.
But you say that's mostly in the West.
Yeah, over here. This is not, in the West, it's all about the intellect.
Okay. So there's areas where it's not as much.
In India and all stuff like that, the idea of God permeates every drop of their life, every day, all day. They wouldn't even think of doing stuff without asking, praying in God. Funny, think about this. If you study anything about India in that area, when you see their gods will be very bejeweled. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the Indian gods. They're full of rubies and diamonds and pearls, and the people are a lot of the people are poverty-stricken. Some of the most intense poverty you'll ever want to see, right? But their gods are completely bejeweled and surrounded by gold. Now flip it. And in the West, we are very materialistic with the biggest houses and cars and everything material toys you can think. But generally speaking, Jesus came in on a donkey and was very poor. So think about that. Our God has a very poor image as far as material things are concerned, where we are very materialistic and all about the jewels. Mm-hmm. And then over there, they're poor, but their gods have the jewel. It's interesting how it's just a flip. Think about that. Funny, That's why people over here have a hard time accepting anybody that does anything spiritual having any kind of money, which I hate.
I do too. I hate it too.
Yeah. It's ridiculous because you do something spiritual, you're not supposed to receive any money. But if you're a football player, you can make $500 million a year. Oh, great, wonderful. But if I drove up with the Rolls Royce, it would be nothing in the love offering.
What were you gonna say about there's a party that is afraid of there is a part of you.
Well, I would be lying if I said that it wasn't.
Mhm.
That's comforting.
Because if well, see, the one thing that we miss is there's only one way to get here, but there's an infinite number of ways to leave.
Mhm.
You ever thought about that? Generally, you only get here one way, but there's 50 different ways you could die right in this room.
And everybody wants to go in their sleep.
Right. And
Does
so
that
my
happen?
point in saying that is obviously it couldn't be a sin to go, or there wouldn't be so many ways to go.
Uh-huh.
Out of curiosity, what do you believe comes after?
What I believe comes after is that you recreate whatever your consciousness was before. You see what I'm saying? If your consciousness creates your reality now, well, your consciousness is going to create your reality then.
Right.
So ultimately, you're just going to surround yourself again with the kind of mind that you had. That's why spiritual growth is so important, because the only thing you can take with you is what you earned by right of consciousness, right? So if you really changed your mind, and your mind creates your experience, then you're going to have an experience that corresponds with your mind, right? So if you're here and you're never working on your mind, then why would you think that you all of a sudden, just because you died, you'd be in some enlightened state? You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't. You would just recreate what you've already experienced, right? Which would kind of explain the conditions that people are born in,
Right.
right? They're actually being born in their most recent state of mind.
Wow.
Total
Makes sense.
reincarnation.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
If we're thinking our thoughts create our reality now, why would we not think our thoughts would create our reality then?
That makes a lot of sense.
And you can't take anything here with you except your way of thinking,
Exactly.
right? So all people work on here is how many material things I can amass, but they don't work on, well, what kind of thoughts can I amass? Because wherever I'm going, it's going to be a reflection of that. How loving I am, how conscious I am. That's what I'm going to perceive and experience. So when you're doing stuff like this, you're actually guaranteeing yourself more of a prosperous, happy life than anything you can do at a material level, because you're changing your way of thinking about things.
I like that.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes
And well,
sense.
here's another cool thing. You are love. So love is not something you have to put in you. Love is just something you have to remove the blocks to becoming aware that it's already there.
Right.
So you're already a treasure covered up with your robe of self-image, right? The way I think about myself. I'm covered up with how I think about myself. And these kind of books are about getting you to strip.
Mhm.
They're about getting you to pull out that robe, pull those thoughts you got about yourself off, so that that star, that priceless jewel that you are, can radiate and be expressed everywhere. And somebody that loves you, they're reminding you that you are a precious jewel, even when you forget it. Where some people form relationships where the people make them forget their precious jewel by always condemning them and criticizing them. So if you ever forget that you're a precious jewel, you ever forget that you're a priceless part of God's kingdom, I will remind you. Remind you know.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's that's the goal. Why be in a relationship with somebody if that person is not reminding you of your value? Why? Their butt. They got a nice butt.
Well,
Wow.
and well,
And the two start squealing. Both of them over there.
and for me,
I know.
but for me, I think part of it is obligation, because, like, for instance, like my parents, you know, they're like, they're not positive, they're very negative, and I feel, and it's my issues, I know that, you know, that I still want to get their approval and everything, and I still feel like, you know, a good son would not, like, break with them, like, you know, I still want to stick it out with them, but I don't know, the more I do this, the more I find myself that, you know,
Well, you got to fortify yourself in your new belief system.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to fortify yourself in your new belief system, it's necessary to separate yourself for a while from people who you know you make yourself feel less than with, until you become strong enough in your new belief system that even if you're around people who think differently from you, it doesn't affect you. So if you did have a separation from your parents, it would only be temporary. It would just be long enough for you to be so centered in yourself that you would be unaffected by what they would think, right? And then the ones you're no longer affected by them, they would change the way they treated you. Because they're only treating you that way so that you'll get to the point that you become the kind of person that's fortifying
Can you
himself.
say that again?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. I can watch. I can watch.
You can watch it. Yeah. Your parents are giving you an opportunity for you to change your mind about yourself, and when you change your mind about yourself, then you'll get a different reflection from your parents.
Wow.
And also, they are giving you a gift. Because the gift that they're giving you is to get you to the point that you'll say, this is not true about me, and I'm going to learn this is not true about me, and I'm going to do what's necessary for me to recognize it's not true about me. So the people who seem to be your enemies and your worthy opponents, they're there because you attract worthy opponents on your spiritual path, because worthy opponents are the people who, to deal with them, you have to practice every spiritual principle that you know. So you have to have those people in your life, or you'll always be just talking stuff.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You just be philosophizing, but then you have some people that you know you got to practice that you're the one that's choosing your feelings, because they don't give you no slack.
Right.
They don't change. They stay just like they are until you get to the point you go, I got to change my mind because they certainly not going to change their mind.
Wow.
Right? And then what do? Like when you were just saying a minute ago about the thoughts that came up, the thoughts of unworthiness. Okay, well, based on what we just heard tonight, then you're supposed to be able to have those thoughts without judging them, without feeling afraid, and without identifying with them.
Right.
So have those thoughts. I'm not enough, all that stuff. But now you know, oh, I'm not going to judge myself for having those thoughts. I'm not going to be afraid for having those thoughts, and I'm just going to choose not to act on those thoughts. Now, how am I showing you that I'm not acting on those thoughts? Well, I came to this class, I'm reading the book, I'm meditating, I'm being around people who support me. You see what I'm saying? I'm actually backing up. So I'm doing some action to show that I'm beginning to change my mind. And that's what classes like this are symbolic of. It's symbolic of you going beyond, ooh, I just want to have a better life, but I'm not going to do nothing about it, to putting myself where I'm supported, where there are other people around me that want the same thing. Because nobody in here is going to talk about you the way your parents do. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then once you get your mighty companions, then you fortified. You can go visit them and hang out with them. Then it'll be a trip, you know.
Yeah.
Because they're your worthy opponents. You know, they're the ones that say, Chris, do you really believe this stuff that you're studying?
Right.
You know, and you know when you leave them. Some people are going for long opportunities to find that that's true for months.
That's why I needed to say
Can you say it again?
I'm getting ready to go hang out with my folks now. Debbie, are you still working on your PhD? Yes, I am. What was it? It's pile high and deep. PhD.
So what you're saying is, even though you don't think it, so say I choose to take higher ground on a fight. Somebody's like going off on me and I'm just like not participating. But in my mind, I'm talking mass shit about them. And
Right.
then to my other friends, I'm talking mass shit about them.
Right.
But the fact that I took higher ground is a willingness,
A willingness to not feel guilty about having the thought, not judging yourself about having the thought, not being afraid about having the thought, not identifying with the thought, and not acting on the thought.
cool. So even
Notice
though
I didn't say
have
don't.
the bad
Notice I
thought-
didn't say don't have the thought.
Right.
I didn't say that because that's where all of the challenge comes in. The challenge is me trying to pretend that I don't feel upset about this right now.
Even though you're acting like in a way that you wish you felt.
Yeah, outwardly, you're not attacking.
Right.
Right, smart.
Okay.
Smart. Because all attack is physical. All attack is physical. If it's not physical, you're not being attacked. If it's not physical, you're just making yourself feel attacked, but you're not being attacked.
Okay.
Okay. There's no such thing as mental and emotional abuse. Because you never have to accept whatever the person is saying to you. You never have to buy into it. You never have to believe it's true. So nobody can hurt your feelings unless you give it the meaning that hurts your feelings.
So if somebody attacks you, then beat the shit out of them.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, don't let them beat the shit out of you.
What I said is, you feel the feeling, you have whatever comes up, and you don't feel guilty about it, and you ask the Holy Spirit as quickly as you can what it is you need to do in this situation. You ask your higher self what I should do. And it's never going to tell you to beat the shit out of the person. That's another thing. Jesus and the higher self is not going to walk over and say, kick their ass, man. Okay? That's not going to be what Spirit's going to tell you to do. Okay?
There's a difference between taking higher ground in a verbal attack and being like, I'm not going to engage.
No,
And
nobody.
if somebody's physically attacking
Well,
you.
you're going to do what you're going to do when it happens.
it
you're
won't
gonna
be
do-
unspiritual if I beat the shit out of them if they're physical.
There's nothing that you can ultimately do that is not going to be unspiritual because you are spirit.
Okay.
So no matter what you do, you're still going to be spirit. You know? But you're gonna live in a world that's based on your consciousness, and if you got a consciousness that's based on attack, you're going to be surrounded by people who attack you,
Okay.
which you don't want.
No.
That's the only problem. You know, what you put out there is what's going to come back to you. So if you want to kick butt, that's okay. But you're going to be surrounded by people who like to kick butt. Okay. That's if you're willing to deal with that, no problem.
No, I don't.
You know. Okay. All right. So let's go a little bit
that
further.
way.
Yeah. It's not like you can just kick people's butt and be a horrible, miserable person and think you're going to be surrounded by people saying "Kumbaya, my lord." You know what I'm saying? You're going to be attracted. You're going to be surrounded by people who are just like you.
Yeah.
That's why I don't do it. I don't want to be surrounded by people who attack. So I have to not be one myself. That's the only way it can happen. The only way. The only way.
I know, but if somebody attacks you,
It could be residue.
huh?
It could be residue.
You're gonna do.
Oh.
That's a good point. I'm gonna say this one more time. If you're in a situation where it looks like you're being physically attacked, you're gonna do what you're gonna do.
Yep.
You're gonna do what you're gonna do, and you won't know what you're gonna do until that moment.
Yep.
All right? And no
I
matter
just don't
what,
want
and
people
no
to
matter,
think that
and I
I'm
want everybody to hear
not
that. You're gonna do what you're gonna do if somebody attacks you.
Yep.
You're not gonna go, what did Earl say? You know, you're gonna defend yourself if you believe defending is what you need to do. You're gonna run if you think running is what you need to do. All you need to remember is that no matter what you choose to do, if it's something that you wish you had it done differently, say, I wish I had done it differently, I want another way to look at it, and I'm innocent. That's it. Okay? You with me?
Yeah.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
let's go a little bit further. Let's do I'm gonna do one OM that I would like to ask you to do with me to kind of wake us up a little bit more, those of you who are about to pass out. Okay. And those nice. It goes like this. Yeah, you got it? Let's do it. That feel good. And then here's another one. Easy, 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 easy. Let's hit it. Easy, 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 Didn't that feel good? And it has some notes, like some words, just the words have a vibration, like easy. You'd be amazed at just giving yourself 5 to 10 seconds of easy. It'll make a big difference in the day. All right, so let's go. We're down to the last 20 minutes. We can do it, gang. Can we do it?
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yes.
All right, okay, here we go. How many of you are willing to admit you're totally friggin' insane in some part of your mind right now?
Yes.
You know you're that way. Look around the room.
Crazy.
So you know you're innocent. You know you're innocent. You're not the only one. Just don't give anybody your phone number tonight. Okay. Don't give anybody your phone number. You know you're in a room full of insane people. But we're so damn cute. That's the problem, isn't it? You be crazy, but you cute. Somebody gonna want you. I'm counting on it. It's worked for me. All right, here we go. Then he says that, what are you gonna do with a friend? What are you gonna do with a friend?
Oh, tell them your deepest feelings.
Right. The stuff you feel the most negative about, the most fearful about, right? Then he says, a mind no longer committed to hiding becomes transparent to itself, and through it, the power of Christ, and you want to get it, what Christ simply means is your true self. Okay, so it's another term for your true self. Okay, and through it, the power of Christ, your true self, can begin to move with certainty, with knowledge, with grace, and with compassion. The mind has always been the problem, but not the entirety of the mind, just a small corner of your mind that has been fenced off, called the ego. When you became identified with only the ego, that part of the mind, you became egocentric. The center of your identity became the ego, and that is the source of the problem. Quite frankly, it is like identifying with a pimple on the skin and then defending the pus within it at all costs. So your ego is like a pimple on your body. It's that little. And he says that we're identifying with that little bitty part of ourselves that's afraid and separate and angry, and now we're calling the pimple us. Because for all we know, we could just be a pimple on some giant elephant's butt. You know, we really don't know what we are or where we are. You know what I mean? Like if you see an ant crawling on you, do you think that ant has the slightest conception of who you are that it's crawling on? No. We are crawling on something too, that we don't have any conception of what it is. So we just make up what we think it is. And that we do that so we won't be terrified. The Course in Miracles teaches that the reason why adults judge and interpret people's motivations is because adults are trying to convince themselves that they know what's going on. Because adults think they need to know what's going on. So he says, so what we do is we interpret everything, then we react as if our interpretations are true, because we're trying to convince ourselves we know what the hell is going on. Because it's too frightening for us to admit to ourselves we don't know what is going on, we don't know what anything is for, we don't know what our own best interests are. He said that's too frightening for us to get that honest. So we judge so that we can think we know what's happening. And then we react to people as if our judgments are correct. And they're not. Isn't that deep?
It's like the victim mentality saying, if somebody got mugged, we want to think, oh, well, were they walking on Colfax at 4 a.m. in the morning so that we know we're safe.
Yeah, we got to come up with our own interpretation so that we think we know what's going on. Just like what you're saying. The mind has always been the problem, but not the entirety of the mind. So frankly, silence is the doorway that will dissolve the pimple and the pus forever. So in other words, if you want to get rid of your ego, shut the hell up is what you just told me. He says silence is the doorway that will dissolve the pimple and the pus forever. So as you become more conscious, you become more silent. Kind of explains why we don't hear very much from invisible higher beings. Notice that we're studying, but no higher beings are talking to us right now. They're silent. Because if you would be surprised how much more peaceful your life will become if you'll be quiet. Then it says, silence is arrived at in many ways, but the principal cornerstone is deep self-honesty. The act of transformation then, the way of transformation, is a process whereby you put the squeeze on the pimple of the ego and you no longer care what pus comes out because you just want to be done with the pus. So what does that mean? It means that as you wake up, you don't really care what your ego thinks. You don't care about your negative thoughts. You don't care about your murderous thoughts. You don't care about your jealous thoughts. You don't care about your lack thoughts. Because you realize they're just thoughts that are rising from the part of you that doesn't realize that you are infinite spirit, and you just look at it, and you feel it, and you admit you created, and you say, I'm thankful I can create, and you remind yourself that your true spiritual identity is still there. I am still as God created me. This is too easy. This would be so easy. So self-honesty is the greatest act of love that you will ever experience within yourself. Self-honesty is greater than any sexual union. Self-honesty feels better than sex.
Woohoo!
Being honest with yourself feels better than sex. That went over really big.
I know. We got some skeptics in the room.
Okay. Well, I want y'all to experiment with that and get back with me on it.
Call me in the middle of the
Call me in the middle of the night. that sure? No, it's Mr. Six. I get around to self-honesty Self-honesty is greater than any adulation of the world, and self-honesty is greater than any mystical experience. The embracing of deep self-honesty, the mastery of self-honesty is the greatest act of love that the mind can experience. For in perfect self-honesty, the world is transcended. Fear is dissolved in self-honesty, and enlightenment is present in self-honesty. And in enlightenment, there is remembrance of perfect innocence in union with God. So when you go for the self-honesty, you're going to remember that you're perfectly innocent. And when you go for self-honesty, you will have all of your feelings and all of your emotions and all of your thoughts without condemning yourself for them, being afraid of them, or identifying with them. And you will have a mystical experience that is greater than sex, greater than adulation, and even greater than any mystical experience you could ever have. And that is what we deserve. So would you acknowledge yourself for hearing this much tonight of this kind of stuff? Whoa! All right, we're gonna do the financial expression of appreciation right now. And thank you so much. I'm a full-time teacher of this stuff, so I really appreciate your sharing. Wow. Those of you on the internet that's been watching the classes and sending in financial expressions of appreciation, thank you so much. If you want to make a financial expression of appreciation, go to my website, earlpurdy.com. And also, if you want to have a one-on-one session, counseling session, called a clarity session, which I do, go to my website. It also explains all about that. If you're open to astrology and numerology also, then I use that too in my personal sessions. Been having some great ones from all over the world. I've been learning a whole lot, and we're getting some great feedback. So thank you, God. Thank you, God. Sundays at 1 o'clock is a Course in Miracles. I want to invite you to do that from 1 to 2. We've been having incredible Course in Miracles classes and Way of Mastery classes. Yeah, what do you think about the Way of Mastery? I think it's cool book. It is so thought-provoking. It really is. It's like I'm tapping into another part of myself. All right, so we're going to now, I'm going to throw it open one more time. There's one more exercise in self-honesty I want to do that we've done before, but I want to do it one more time. Because remember, he told us that self-honesty would be the thing that would keep us from having conflict. It would be the thing that would cut down the pain, get it out of our lives. So I think it's great for us to finally realize that if we are saying what we think of as negative things, that actually, looked at correctly, they can free us. Because it means we're being honest with ourselves about what we're thinking in that moment. He says the problem is that we judge it because we're into false spirituality. And he says false spirituality is us believing that it's not okay to have those thoughts. So then we pretend we don't have them because we want to be really nice people. And so that actually is what creates the psychotic, psycho, insane, murderous people. They are trying to pretend that they don't feel what they feel because they're trying to be good people. So what happens is, what do? I admit to myself what I feel it fully, tell myself that I'm the one that's creating it, I'm giving it all the meaning it has for me. I'm grateful, I'm thankful that I create my own reality, that I'm not a victim. I am skilled as God created me. Okay? So let's do the exercise in self-honesty. Here it goes. And I want you to just really be honest with yourself, okay? You with me? Okay. Number 1. Have you ever had a murderous thought? No. Have you ever manipulated another person in order to try to gain what you believe you needed? Yes. Have you ever manipulated or attempted to manipulate another person to get what you want? Yes. Have you ever withdrawn your love for the reason of trying to hurt somebody? I'm going to snatch my love back just so I can hurt you because you hurt me, so I'm taking my love back from you. Have you ever had disrespectful sexual fantasies? Now, what is a disrespectful sexual fantasy? I'm going to tell you what a disrespect is. You having a sexual fantasy about a person that they wouldn't like you having about them. In other words, you doing something to them in your mind that you know if you tried to do it in real life, you'd be going to jail. That's a disrespectful sexual fantasy. If I'm having a fantasy about somebody and I know that they really probably wouldn't be open to that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're guilty. Remember, don't judge it. Don't judge it. Don't be afraid of it. It's not saying judge it and be afraid of it. It's just asking you, have you ever had a disrespectful sexual fantasy? Are you having any about anybody in the room right now? Have you ever hated the world?
Yes.
Have you ever said, I wish I wouldn't here. I hate this freaking place. It's the craziest, stupidest place I've ever been in my life. I hate it. Have you ever despised yourself? Have you ever absolutely just despised yourself? And here's another big one. Have you ever hated God? Have you ever hated God? In perfect self-honesty, the answer to each of these questions would only be yes. If you're really being honest right now, you should have said yes to every last one of them. The honest mind looks upon everything that arises within it without judgment, so don't judge yourself for that. Because there can be no honesty where there is judgment. If you're judging, you're not being honest. If you're judging those thoughts, you're not being honest. If you're judging those thoughts, you're not being honest. I want you to think well upon the questions that we've asked you, then simply take it a step further. I want you to ask yourself, has any of that type of thing occurred within your mind recently? Have you felt any of these things recently?
Yes.
So notice what happens now. Pay attention to your mind, pay attention to your body, pay attention to your breath. Pay attention to your mind, pay attention to your body, pay attention to your breath. What occurs as you begin to get closer to the truth? Do you notice a little bit of restlessness? Do you notice that your mind is becoming more active with chatter? Well, then I want you to decide for silence right now. Say, I decide for silence, I decide for peace. I decide for silence, I decide for peace. Because the healing occurs to the depth and degree that you're willing to embrace all that occurs within your mind. Now say it again. Your healing occurs to the degree that you're willing to embrace all the thoughts you have in your mind. So how do you embrace all the thoughts you have in your mind? Well, the fearful, angry, negative, upsetting thoughts, you let yourself have those thoughts, and you don't judge those thoughts, you don't fear those thoughts, you don't identify with those thoughts, and you don't let those thoughts direct your physical actions. Thank you, mighty companions. Thank you for coming out tonight. Y'all, you are blessed in my dream life. Woo! Wow. So you're going out in the lab. So your challenge will be have the crappiest thoughts that you ever want to have come up in your mind, and don't condemn yourself for them. Then you're becoming transparent. Then you're allowing yourself to be truly spiritual. What a great assignment. Hugs up, Gullible. Appreciate y'all. Cool people.